Yes. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Rasulullah. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Saif Rahman. I am the founding board member of MOVE, the Virginia Muslim Chamber, and we are happy to be joined today with Samira Rashan, who is with NCRC. NCRC actually has interesting background because they do great work, and they have, as part of their organization, a community development financial institution, which essentially is designed to help communities, particularly minority communities or communities that haven't had access to, historically had access to capital and other resources, to really help with development work in those communities. So one of the things we'll be discussing today is a grant that NCRC is doing with the Illinois Department of Commerce, and talking about some grant funding for particularly today, Samir, I think we'll talk about halal restaurants or Muslim restaurants, because there are a significant portion of them in the Chicago area. So thank you for joining us. We will also be distributing this, and the deadline to apply for this is May 10th. So just keep that in mind as we go through this presentation. Again, thank you very much, Samira, for joining us. I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, I'm Samira Rashan, and I will be the speaker today. I'm a grant outreach coordinator with NCRC Community Development Fund, and I'm here to inform you all things about the Back to Business grant programs. So I'll go through the general guidelines and then do a deep dive into each of the 3 grants, and we can focus on the restaurants a little more. And afterwards, we can answer any questions that you guys have. So the qualification process has a lot of strict criterias, and I understand that every business is different and they may have unique circumstances when it comes to, their tax forms or their registration. So, I may not have all the answers, but you can always reach out to us and the DCEO, and we will promise to get back to you as soon as we can. Great, so let's just dive right in. So our Back to Business grants are for restaurants, hotels, and the creative arts industries. So a little more background on us. We have been selected by the state of Illinois DCEO to support the application review, provide technical portal support, and manage the development of the application and provide any sort of processing help that you may need. And Submittable is the website that you go and submit the form. So they have been selected by us to run the online portal. And if you have any technical assistance or any technical help, they'll be there to assist you on that. We also have community navigators. There are over 100 people who work with the DCEO, and they're available to help provide support during your application and maybe help crunch some numbers with you. So we have a whole list of people available to help you on the Illinois website. So in the past, we had another round of B2B and as well as business interruption grants. And the DCEO has provided over 535 million previously to over 15,000 business owners. So for this round, we're focusing on restaurants, hotels, and the art industries. And this is all for COVID-19 recovery. And this time we have 175 million available in grant funding. And one thing to note is that all applicants who are eligible will receive some monetary reward, and so long as you submit the correct documents and attestations, that'll be the case.
Samira, what size are the grants, if you don't mind, for each business?
We can go down. It's right here on this slide. So
okay.
For the restaurants, we have 50 million of that allocated to them. And the maximum award you can get is $50,000. And one of the criteria is you have to have 50 or fewer employees. For the hotels specifically, there's 75 million available in the funds. And this is based on $1,500 per room. For the creative arts, there's 50 million available and up to 250,000 in max reward for a single organization. So I believe the minimum is 5,000 though, and that depends on when your business was open. So it can go from 5,000 to up to 250,000 specifically for the creative arts.
And what if someone has a restaurant chain and has different locations?
So they would qualify as well, you know, if the company is all under one tax, you know, return on information, they can file for all of them. It just has to be that 50 or fewer employees across the board. But if each individual establishment has their own entity and like tax returns, maybe even a different business owner, but you know, just if they're on their own, they can apply separately.
So each individual entity would apply separately.
Yeah, if that's the case, but if one franchise owns it all, then it would be under one.
Okay.
So some examples of the types of businesses eligible, you know, independently owned, for-profit, limited liability, partnerships, sole props, and of course, nonprofits who are registered as a 501c3 or C organization. You have to be in good standing with the Illinois Secretary of State, and businesses or organizations that receive federal COVID-19 relief funding previously, such as PPP and EIDL, are eligible, but depending on the grant, people who received the B2B or BIG and RRF programs previously may not qualify. So we can dive deeper into that later. And of course, you have to be established by March 12th, 2020. But if your business was opened early 2020, like January and up to March 12th, you are eligible to receive a minimum of $5,000.
So if someone did receive PPP funding from the Small Business Administration, they are eligible to apply for this.
Correct. The PPP, you are eligible. So like, for example, the restaurants, they wouldn't be eligible if they applied for and received money from the previous B2B grant or the previous big program. But for hotels, you can qualify. You just have to subtract what you were awarded previously from what you would get this time around. So we can dive more deeper into that. But you have to have experienced a loss in earned revenue of at least $5,000 due to the economic disruptions related to COVID-19. So the sort of documentation required, we're talking driver's license, state ID, passports, all of that is required to submit tax returns. Depending on each of the grants, we're going to be asking for a different year. It could include 2019, 2020, and 2021. And I understand, again, there's a lot of different things that can go on with the revenue and the profits. So if there's any situation where you need help gathering this information, or whether your specific tax return qualifies, you can just contact us.
Do they have to have a specific loss?
Across, it has to be 5,000 minimum, or yeah, minimum.
So they have to show a loss on their tax returns. What if they show a revenue on their returns?
So if this is for a company that maybe has been in business for the past 10 years. So we would compare their 2019, so their 2020 and their 2021. If we see if we see 2019 had a revenue was great, it was running great, but what happened in 2020 is that you experienced the loss, then you would qualify. And then we could also compare that to 2021. And if the loss continues, you could get even more money back. And then, of course, there's instances where people, they may have received money. They may have lost money in 2020, but it somehow didn't compare enough to what they lost in 2019. So there's little situations like that where we can comb through and see if you're eligible. So yeah. So these are ineligible businesses. So a government-owned business entity cannot qualify. So public schools, for example, would not qualify. A private club or business that limits membership for reasons other than capacity. A business engaged in activities that are prohibited by federal law. Anyone involved in politics or lobbying activities. businesses engaged with teaching, instruction, counseling, or indoctrinating religion or religious beliefs, whether it's religious or secular setting. A nightclub or a strip club, pawn shop, liquor store, and any permanently closed businesses. So for restaurants, let's jump right in. Business types. People who fall under this category are restaurants, taverns, bars, caterers, breweries, wineries, food trucks, street vendors. They must have a food and beverage license at the time of application. And we've had questions on whether it has to be state permit or city permit. Either one can qualify. So city, county, or state.
And do they have to be anywhere? Is this Chicago specific, or is this anywhere
all
in
of
Illinois?
All of
All
Illinois.
of Illinois. So it can be anywhere in Illinois, as long as it's a business registered in the state of Illinois.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, our outreach efforts, well, of course, it's central to Chicago since that's where most of the population and businesses are located. We've been trying to reach folks in more of Southern Illinois and in counties that are not as represented as much. So you can find a full list of the eligibility documents on our government website. Be 50 or fewer employees in operation by March 12th, 2020, and still in operation at the time of application. And they must have experienced the loss or contributed revenue of at least $5,000 due to COVID-19. So to qualify, you should not have received any state or local funding, including the RRF funds, the previous B2B, the Illinois Business Interruption Grant, and any other local state programs that provided over $10,000 in grants or loan forgiveness. So you would not qualify if you have received these. Restaurants that receive federal PPP or other federal reliefs besides RRF are eligible.
So Samira, what if a restaurant received the PPP in 2020 and continued to experience not PPP, the RRF, for example, and experienced a bigger loss than what they received? They would still be ineligible?
I mean, the guidelines would say, yeah, they're not eligible. If that's a unique situation that I may also have to circle back to you on. I feel like I'm comfortable saying they still wouldn't be qualified just because, you know, they're pretty strict about that. Yeah, so that would be an unfortunate situation. If that comes up though, please let me know and I could talk to my contact at the CEO.
Great, thank you.
So the award size is based on losses incurred based on tax information submitted and up to $50,000. The number of applicants may also impact the award amounts. So if there's a lot more people, we would scale the award appropriately. That would be the one circumstance when that happens. For example, if there's less people who applied, we're not going to increase the awards, you know. So keep that in mind. So the funds must be spent within 1 year of the award. An attestation will be required, and any funding not spent within a year must be returned.
And
so
what are they spent on? What do they have to be spent on?
I have the whole list right here.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Yeah. So it's going to be mostly payroll, HR items, employer contributions to healthcare, interest on any mortgage obligation, rent payments, rents, utilities, maintenance, and operational expenses, and of course, paid sick leave and payroll costs as well.
And essentially, they have to submit an attestation that the money was spent on these items?
Correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And this, just to be very clear to folks, this is grant money, which means this is not a loan. This is just assistance from the state for losses that restaurants or hotels incurred due to COVID.
Correct. So that was the restaurants, and we can talk a little bit about the hotels. So the business types would include hotels, motels, inns, lodging sites. We have a full list, but one thing to note is that Airbnb and short-term vacation rentals will not qualify. So prior recipients of the state COVID-19 funds are eligible to apply. So that differs from the restaurant one. So we would just have to we would have to subtract from the total award this time around. So based on the number of rooms, up to 1,500 per room, the number of applicants may also be impacted this time around as well. For hotels, funds must be also spent within a year. And for this, we have 80% of funding must be spent on payroll employee-related costs, including paid leave, employee contributions for healthcare. And then the rest, the 20% of funding, is flexible, and it's based on the needs of the awardee.
And Samira, just to be clear, when an organization applies, so the application deadline is May 10th. What's the timeline from May 10th to approval, for example? And then how long does it take to get the funds thereafter?
Okay, so there's a lot of little factors that may contribute to the timeline, but if all goes as planned, May 10th is the end date. We'll have an immediate rounds of review, and awards should be announced within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I believe, and we can start spending or distributing that money. I would just be comfortable saying June, around June. There's going to be an appeal period, so those people who are rejected will have time to argue their case, essentially, and that may also push the distribution of the awards. But one thing to note is we're going to be announcing everyone at once, so it's not on a rolling basis. It's not first come, first serve kind of thing. We're announcing everyone at once if they qualify, and if it so happens that not enough people have applied to these programs, there's going to be a round 2. So again, that deadline or the distribution dates will also be pushed back. But
and if more people than the funds available apply, you're going to just reduce the grant, the individual grant amounts by a little
correct.
bit.
Yeah.
Okay. And then do businesses have to submit their bank information, for example, or as part of this process, or how are the funds dispersed?
That would be through, I think, submittable. I can circle back to you on that exactly. That's a good question. But I believe it'll be through the portal that you're submitting the application. And then your other question was, sorry, well, you said something about.
And then after that, they'll have a year to, once they receive the money, they'll have a year from the date of that receipt to spend it on the eligible expenditures that you've noted, essentially.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So for art, at first, you think paintbrush and tools and all of that, but when you go down deeper into like who could be eligible, a lot of you'd be surprised. So I would keep an eye on the type of companies that are eligible for this, because you may know someone. We're talking independent live venue operators, performing or presenting art organizations, art education organizations, museums, cultural heritage organizations. And it's the performing and presenting arts category goes really deep. You can be a photographer, a sound engineer, technician, a graphic designer, movie theater.
But they have to have been a registered business as such, essentially.
Yeah. So I know there's a lot of people who do their own thing. But once again, sole proprietorships do qualify. So I'm also a sole proprietor, graphic designer. So if I was living in Illinois, I'd be eligible. And yeah, you just would have to have your business established prior to March or by March 12th, 2020. For this, prior recipients of the state COVID-19 funds are eligible to apply still. For this, the award size is a maximum $250,000. So I would like someone who could qualify for that would be like, again, movie theaters can apply, museums as well. So it can go really high.
Someone who is a wedding photographer, for example, and has a registered company as such.
Correct. And one thing in the arts application that's different than the rest is you have to submit your artwork and like a photo of proof of what you're doing. And for a wedding photographer, you can submit your photography. Designers can submit design work. People who are in, just note that you have to submit proof of your work. And
so we have a question that came in. Would an ethnic cultural foundation / organization be able to apply for this?
it depends. So the one thing DCO is trying to like push to all of the applicants is that your creative arts business must be arts for the public. So if you can, attest to that and say that my business presents arts, let's go back one category, presents arts or performs arts to the public in this capacity, yeah, you could qualify. Arts education organizations and cultural heritage organizations do qualify. So if that's what you mean, I would recommend looking into the eligibility guidelines more and seeing if a cultural heritage organization could qualify in the example you noted.
And the other question that came in is, our cultural center has hotel rooms, a kitchen serving lunch and dinner most of the time. We don't have a separate restaurant or hotel business. Are we eligible for this grant?
Yeah, I have the answer right here. Let me get you like the official wording for that. So there's been a lot of instances where people have a hotel with a restaurant. Do we apply as one? Do we apply separately? There's a lot of like if you're the example that you noted, if it's mostly a cultural heritage center, and then the tax form you're submitting yourself as that, we would recommend to just apply for the grant that most is applicable to you. So you can't separate those three. You can't say I'm a restaurant, so I'm going to apply for the restaurant under the same organization. You can only apply for one grant, and it would just be up to the business owner to decide which they would better fit.
Would it make sense to say that you would apply for your primary function? So if your primary function is the venue space, you'd apply under the venue grant. If your primary function is the restaurant, then you'd apply under a restaurant, because someone could arguably say, well, we're a restaurant, but we do live entertainment on Saturdays, for example. But the restaurant is the primary, so they should apply under the restaurant.
Yes, okay. That's the case.
Great, thank you.
So for the Arts Award, we would like to see the gross receipts for the businesses and revenues for the nonprofits. Specifically, there's been instances where people are like, I'm not sure what to submit as a nonprofit. So we have that direction on our frequently asked questions. So applicants that previously received the award, the BIG or B2B grant, must use tax year 2021 as a comparison year. And the number of applicants may also impact the award amounts for this. So some important dates to note, we open April 5th and are about to close next Wednesday on May 10th. So I would encourage your network to apply probably this week. If there's anything that comes up, any questions, and I promise there will be, we want to give them the appropriate amount of time to prepare that and fix that so that they can submit on or by May 10th. For program questions, again, please reach out to the community navigators. I'm here as well, and we have one other grant outreach coordinator, but the community navigators have been educated on the grants, so they can also, be a great assistance. Any of the technical portal questions, please contact Submittable. We have a lot of issues with maybe address input, and they can, help you out there as well.
So what's the web address for the community navigators, Samira?
Yeah, let me enter that information for you here. So it's the, where is the,
Well, we can share it afterwards when we
yeah,
share
I'll
this
share that
video.
afterwards. Yeah.
We can definitely put it in the video, I guess, when we edit. And then regarding submittable, is it if someone is trying to submit to the grant, or do they just go to www.submittable.com?
Oh, no. So we
Okay.
have the email if you want to go ahead and just reach out via your email, but the actual application has a box where you could type your name, your question, and send it over to them. So they'll know exactly which grant you're asking questions about. They have a great response time, so they're available 7 days a week, 8 to 5, and they should help you within an hour or so.
Okay, and we'll be sharing those websites with folks that
Correct.
are on this call, as well as folks that are going to be seeing this video after the fact.
Yeah. So we have the community navigators, we have small business development centers available for resources. And again, we will provide all these links. Our email is cdfgrants@ncrc.org. So if you have any eligibility questions and maybe a community navigator wasn't able to help you with that, we are, of course, available and ready to assist you. Specifically for the creative arts grant, an organization called Arts Alliance Illinois has been extremely helpful. They've been assisting with any sort of webinar requests that may come through specifically for the arts grant. They have people ready to go to answer any of your questions. So they're very educated on that, and any of the specifics, I recommend going to them as well. Again, the program information on the site we will provide that has access to all the list of community navigators. It has the guidelines, the frequently asked questions, and an important thing to note is the frequently asked questions, as well as the application, maybe not the application, but I know for sure the frequently asked questions is available in over like 10 languages. So Urdu, Farsi, Chinese, Spanish, English. We have all these resources available. We can also, of course, link you to the application portal itself.
So
yeah,
just very quickly, just as a quick recap, May 10th is the deadline for application. Any restaurant or hotel or sort of a venue, or even photographers or folks that are registered businesses that have sort of performative type businesses are eligible for this. The grants are up to $50,000 for restaurants, $250,000 for hotels.
Oh no, for creative arts.
For creative arts, I'm
Hotels,
sorry,
hotels is
250,000,
1,500
per room for
Mhm.
hotels. So, and if people have questions, we'll be sharing those questions with folks. We'll be sharing emails with folks through this portal and the video that we essentially are going to distribute to the community. For those of you that are with us on this webinar, do you have any questions that haven't been answered? Well, I think we answered a couple of questions that came in, but if there's any other questions, we can take them now. Samira, is there anything else that you think people should know other than sort of the dates? Again, May 10th is the day. And if all the grants aren't distributed, essentially what's going to happen is you're going to do another round of these later on, correct?
Possibly, yeah. So stay tuned for that. It's not for certain right now.
Okay.
And anything else, I would just recommend going through all the resources on the DCEO site that I'll link you to. If you want to submit an application, just remember you have to create an account with Submittable. You can view your application status through that portal as well. If you're not ready to submit yet, but still want to look at the application, we can also provide you a link to just the application as a PDF. So you can just scroll through and take notes of what tax forms that you may need to look into. So we have that available as well. Yeah, If anything else comes up, please email us at ncrc, at cdfgrants@ncrc.org, and I'm available to help you.
Okay, well, again, thank you very much, Samira Roshan from NCRC. I think you guys are doing great work, and we will be distributing this video within the larger Illinois community through the different institutions that are sort of active in the Muslim community there. So if you are getting this, we're essentially just connecting you all as the Muslim Chamber in Virginia with NCRC because we think it's an important program to do that. So want to thank Samira for being with us today and doing this presentation. We will inshallah get this out to everybody in the next a few days, a couple days, I think, because the deadline is 8 days away essentially.
Yeah.
Again, folks, May 10th is the day to apply. Make